You're standing in the cereal aisle, half awake, staring at a wall of boxes. Every single one is screaming at you. Whole grain, with vitamins. Part of a balanced breakfast. Meanwhile, your kid is lobbying hard for the one with the cartoon tiger doing parkour on the front. Here's the problem. A lot of these cereals are basically candy in disguise. We're talking dessert-level sugar before 8 a.m., almost no fiber, huge portion sizes, and sometimes a bunch of artificial colors and add-ins that make the bowl look more like a party mix than a meal. In this video, we're counting down 15 cereal brands you should think twice about as an everyday breakfast, plus a few dishonorable mentions at the end. Then, we'll break down how to choose a safer cereal in under 10 seconds just by reading the box. Quick disclaimer before we dive in. This is not never eat this again or you're doomed. You can absolutely enjoy any of these as an occasional treat. We're just talking about what makes sense as a daily habit, especially for kids and anyone trying to keep their energy, appetite, and health in a good place. And yes, the number one cereal on this list is so sugary, it might actually shock you when you hear how it stacks up. All right, grab your spoon, maybe check what's already in your pantry, and let's start the countdown. Let's zoom out for a second. Most health guidelines that talk about kids and sugar suggest keeping added sugar pretty low. Think just a handful of teaspoons total for the entire day. But one generous bowl of many kids' cereals can blow through half or more of that in a single shot, especially if you're not measuring servings and you're filling the bowl to the brim. Here's why that matters. When you eat a big hit of refined carbs and sugar with almost no fiber or protein, your blood sugar spikes, then crashes. That's the "I'm starving again at 10 a.m." feeling after a sugary breakfast. Low-fiber, high-sugar breakfasts don't keep you full. You're way more likely to snack on more sugary stuff later, which adds up over time. And if breakfast is basically candy and milk, it can bump out chances to get in things like fiber, healthy fats, and protein in the morning. Now, cereal itself is not the villain. There are options that are low in sugar, high in fiber, and genuinely convenient. The problem is that the worst offenders are often marketed the loudest, especially to kids. That's why this list exists, to help you tell the difference. Before we start calling out boxes, let's talk how they landed here. For this countdown, we looked at added sugar per serving. The higher the sugar, the more likely it is to show up. We looked at fiber, because low or zero fiber plus high sugar is a double whammy. We looked at whether it's mostly refined grains or whole grains. Cereals built mostly on refined grains got a downgrade. We also looked at extra candy, add-ins, marshmallows, chocolate pieces, frosting, and at whether this could realistically be part of a balanced daily breakfast, or if it's more of an occasional dessert. Formulas do change, and there are regional differences, so always read your own label. This list is here to help you spot the patterns. All right, let's kick off the countdown with number 15. At number 15, we've got Nestlé Nesquik cereal. If you've ever had the chocolate milk powder, you already know the vibe. This is basically that, in crunchy little balls. On the surface, it sounds fun. Whole grains, a chocolate flavor kids love, and a bowl of milk that turns into a mini chocolate drink. But look a little closer at the label and you'll usually see a hefty dose of sugar per serving, mostly refined grains, and added oils and flavorings to keep it extra crunchy and chocolatey. As an occasional Saturday treat? Sure, live your life. But as a daily breakfast, especially for kids, it's a fast track to that mid-morning energy crash. Think of Nesquik cereal as chocolate milk's wild cousin. Fun sometimes, not the one you want over every single morning. At number 14, we've got a classic. Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. You know the slogan. You know the tiger. But what you might not notice at 7 a.m. is what's actually on the flakes: sugar. And a lot of it. Without the frosting, this is basically a simple cornflake. With it, you get a bowl that's loaded with added sugar, barely any fiber to keep you full, and that unmistakable sticky coating that tells you straight away, oh yeah, this is candy territory. Here's the issue. It looks like a normal, plain cereal. No wild colors, no marshmallows. So it's easy to assume it's a basic, harmless choice. But nutritionally, a big bowl of Frosted Flakes is pretty much a crunchy sugar delivery system. If you love them, maybe treat them like a weekend nostalgia breakfast, not your Monday through Friday fuel. Number 13 is Trix, the cereal that proves, once and for all, that the rabbit is not the only one getting tricked. Trix is famous for those bright, fruity colors and shapes that basically scream, "This is for kids." And honestly, it tastes exactly like what it looks like. A bowl of tiny fruit-flavored candies. In a typical serving, you're getting plenty of added sugar, very little fiber, a base of refined grains, and often a lineup of artificial colors that make the bowl glow like a rainbow. The problem isn't eating Trix once in a while for fun. The problem is when this becomes the default breakfast every morning for years. If your goal is steady energy and a kid who doesn't crash mid-morning, Trix is more birthday party treat than school day starter. The rabbit isn't the only one who should be saying, maybe not every day. At number 12, we've got Cocoa Puffs. Cocoa Puffs basically sell you on one idea. We'll turn your milk into chocolate. Mission accomplished. But the way they do it is a lot of sugar, plus a cocoa-flavored coating on little corn puffs that are mostly refined carbs. In a typical bowl, you're getting a hefty chunk of your daily sugar right out of the gate, very little fiber, and milk that tastes like melted chocolate candy, which your taste buds love. But your blood sugar might not. This is one of those cereals where if you poured it into a dessert bowl instead of a breakfast bowl, nobody would blink. If you love that chocolate milk effect, save Cocoa Puffs for occasional dessert nights or mix a small handful into a more balanced cereal instead of making it the whole bowl. Number 11 is Fruity Pebbles, the cereal that looks like confetti and dissolves in milk in about 3 minutes flat. On the nostalgia level, Fruity Pebbles is elite. On the nutrition level, not so much. Here's what you're usually looking at. 0 or close to 0 fiber, high sugar relative to the tiny serving size, a base of refined rice, and an ingredient list that can read more like a lab experiment than a pantry. Because the flakes are so small and light, it's super easy to overpour. That one serving you see on the box? Most people blow past that without even trying. The result? A big, colorful bowl of fast-digesting carbs that spikes your blood sugar, then leaves you wondering why you're starving an hour later. As a fun dessert, sprinkled on yogurt or ice cream? Cool. As your kid's main breakfast all year? Not ideal. Now we're into the top 10 and kicking it off with Reese's Puffs. Let's be real, the second you see the Reese's logo, you already know what you're signing up for. This is literally cereal based on a candy. Reese's Puffs are sold as peanut butter and chocolate flavored cereal. What that usually means in practice is a lot of added sugar per serving. A base built largely on refined grains, low fiber so it doesn't keep you full for long, and a taste that's suspiciously close to eating candy and milk. Do the peanut butter flavors bring some protein? A little sometimes, but not nearly enough to cancel out the sugar and low fiber. If you think of Reese's Puffs as peanut butter cup flavored cereal, that's actually a pretty accurate description. The issue is when marketing language makes it sound like a balanced breakfast option instead of what it really is, a dessert dressed up as cereal. If this is in your pantry, maybe move it into the treat category, not the daily routine. At number 9, we have Froot Loops, plus its even sweeter cousin, Froot Loops with marshmallows. Froot Loops is one of those cereals that seem not that bad at first glance. It's been around forever, it's fruity, it's fun. But nutritionally, it's closer to a bag of rainbow-colored cookies than a bowl of oats. Here's the usual situation. High added sugar in each serving, not much fiber to slow that sugar down, refined grains making up most of the base, and bright colors that rely heavily on artificial dyes. Add marshmallows to that mix, and you've officially crossed the line into breakfast candy. The tricky part is the health halo. The box might say things like made with grains or with added vitamins. That doesn't cancel out the sugar. If your family loves Fruit Loops, you could shrink the portion and mix it with a high-fiber, low-sugar cereal, or save it for special occasions instead of letting it be the every morning default. Number 8 is Apple Jacks, especially the versions with marshmallows. Apple Jacks sounds kind of wholesome, right? Apples, cinnamon. Sounds like something you'd find at a farmer's market, but most versions of this cereal are more like apple-flavored sugar rings than anything that ever saw an actual orchard. In a typical bowl, you're getting a solid hit of added sugar, mostly refined grains, not much fiber, and when marshmallows show up, the sugar load goes even higher. What really messes with people is the flavor marketing. Apple and cinnamon sounds like baked apples, oatmeal, cozy fall vibes, but in cereal form here, you're getting a very processed, very sweet version of that idea. Nothing wrong with enjoying the taste, just don't confuse it with a bowl of oatmeal with actual apples and cinnamon. If Apple Jacks is a non-negotiable in your house, think about using a smaller bowl or mixing a handful into a more balanced cereal instead of just filling the entire bowl with it. At number 7, we've got Lucky Charms, a cereal that might as well be called marshmallows with a side of cereal. Lucky Charms is iconic, and for good reason. Those colorful marshmallow shapes are basically engineered to be irresistible to kids. But here's what's in that bowl: sugary cereal pieces made from refined grains, a pile of marshmallows that are essentially pure sugar, not a lot of fiber to balance anything out, and often artificial colors to make those marshmallows pop. From a nutrition standpoint, this is one of the clearest dessert disguised as breakfast examples out there. From an emotional standpoint, sure, nostalgia is real. Lots of adults still love Lucky Charms because it reminds them of childhood Saturday mornings. So here's the move: keep it in the fun treat lane. Use it as a topping on yogurt for a special dessert. Share a small bowl on a Sunday. Just don't fall for the idea that a daily bowl of marshmallow cereal is doing your body any favors. Number 6 is Cinnamon Toast Crunch, a cereal that basically tells you the truth in the name. It's cinnamon toast in crunch form. And honestly, it tastes amazing. Cinnamon sugar, crispy edges, that buttery toast vibe. No one's denying it hits the nostalgia button hard, but nutritionally, it's a classic pattern. High added sugar per serving, mostly refined grains, not a lot of fiber, and a flavor profile that is extremely close to eating cinnamon sugar toast as a dessert. If you sit down with a big bowl, it's very easy to overshoot the serving size. And because there's not much fiber or protein, it doesn't keep you full for long. So what do you do if you love it? Try shrinking the portion and pair it with something like Greek yogurt, nuts, or a high-fiber cereal on the side. Think of Cinnamon Toast Crunch as a sweet topping, not the main event of an everyday breakfast. Quick pause before we hit the top 5. If you're still watching right now, drop a strawberry emoji in the comments so I know you actually care what's in your breakfast bowl. Also, tell me, which cereal are you secretly hoping does not show up in the top 5? Alright, let's get into the real sugar bombs. Kicking off the top 5 is Mom's Best Honeyful Wheat. This one is sneaky because the branding feels wholesome. The name sounds gentle. The box usually looks calmer, more natural, less like a cartoon exploded on the shelf. It screams, "Don't worry, I'm the healthy option." But when you look at the nutrition panel, the story changes. Honeyful Wheat has been called out for having very high sugar by weight, despite the more earthy branding. You get a bowl that's very sweet, very fast, not nearly as much fiber as you'd expect from a cereal trying to look wholesome, and a reminder that natural or mom-approved marketing doesn't automatically mean daily breakfast material. This is a perfect example of why you can't rely on the picture on the front of the box. You have to flip it over and check the numbers on the back. If this is in your rotation because it seems better than the louder cartoon brands, it might be time to reconsider and look for something with less sugar and more fiber, even if the box looks a little more boring. At number 4, we have Malt-O-Meal Berry Colossal Crunch with marshmallows. If you've never had it, Picture a giant bag version of a fruity, crunchy cereal. And then someone said, "You know what this needs? Marshmallows." One of the big selling points of Malt-O-Meal cereals is that you get a huge bag for a lower price. But that also means it's easy to pour giant portions without realizing it. And if the cereal itself is high in sugar, you're just getting a bigger, cheaper bag of sugar. Berry Colossal Crunch with marshmallows usually includes high sugar content, refined grains as the base, colorful pieces plus marshmallows for extra sweetness, and very little fiber by comparison. This is basically the bulk bin version of a dessert cereal. It's fun, it's crunchy, it's sweet. But it's not the kind of thing you want to treat like a daily breakfast staple. If you're buying this to save money, here's a tip. You can also buy big, cheap bags of plain oats or bran cereals that will keep you full longer and actually support your health. Budget-friendly doesn't have to mean sugar-heavy. Number 3 is Malt-O-Meal Golden Puffs. If these look familiar, it's because they're basically the bagged, off-brand cousin of some of the sugariest puffed wheat cereals on the market. Golden Puffs are sweetened puffed wheat that, at first glance, might look kind of harmless. Wheat sounds good, right? But again, the key is how much sugar is stuck to that wheat. What you're often getting is sugar making up a huge part of the cereal by weight, very little fiber, and a cereal where most of the calories are coming from quick-burning carbs and sugar. Because it comes in a big bag and pours really easily, it's simple to overshoot the serving size. A couple of just one more scoop moments, and suddenly you've turned breakfast into the sugar equivalent of a couple of candy bars. If you like the texture of puffed wheat, there are unsweetened versions out there. You can sweeten those yourself with a little honey or fruit and still come out way ahead of Golden Puffs. Bottom line, Golden Puffs belong in the occasional treat lane, not the everyday breakfast lane. At number 2, we've got Post Golden Crisp. This is one of those cereals that has been around forever, with that laid-back bear on the box. It looks cute, it feels nostalgic, and if you grew up with it, you probably remember that super sweet crunch. Golden Crisp is another sweetened puffed wheat cereal, but what really lands it this high on the list is just how sugar-heavy it is. In practical terms, you're getting a cereal where sugar makes up a huge chunk of every bite. The carrier worship every bali, not much fiber to slow down digestion, and a taste that's a lot closer to a bowl of candied wheat than anything resembling a balanced meal. If you pour yourself a big bowl and eat it with milk, your blood sugar is basically going on a roller coaster before you've even brushed your teeth. Again, nostalgia is legit. If you love Golden Crisp, no one's saying you can never have it again, but it's way more honest to think of it like a dessert cereal. Something you have once in a while, not the thing you rely on to start your day. And that brings us to number 1. Holding the crown at number 1 is Kellogg's Honey Smacks. This cereal has actually gone by different names over the years, Sugar Smacks being one of them, which kind of tells you everything you need to know. Honey Smacks is another puffed wheat cereal, but compared to almost anything else on the shelf, it's legendary for its sugar content. Spoon for spoon, you're getting a ton of sugar stuck to those puffs. What that means in a bowl is very high sugar relative to the serving size, not much fiber or protein, fast digesting carbs that hit your system quickly, and a taste that's dangerously close to just eating candy-coated puffs with milk. If there's one cereal on this list that deserves to move from the breakfast category to the occasional dessert category, it's this one. So if Honey Smacks has been your daily go-to, this might be your sign to slide it into the once-in-a-while section of the pantry and start looking for something with less sugar and more staying power for Monday through Friday. All right, now let's rapid-fire a few dishonorable mentions, and then I'll show you how to actually pick a safer cereal in under 10 seconds. Here are a few quick dishonorable mentions that didn't make the main 15 but still deserve a side-eye if they're in your daily lineup. Crunchy, honey-coated flakes, and clusters that sound grown-up but hide double-digit grams of sugar in very small serving sizes. Sugary granola-style cereals loaded with chocolate chunks, candy bits, or yogurt-covered pieces. A lot of these have more sugar than some of the kids' cereals we just talked about. Generic fruit rings and marshmallow knockoffs, the store-brand versions of Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, and Friends. They often copy the nutrition problems right along with the shapes and colors. And in general, any cereal where the first few ingredients are some combo of sugar, corn syrup, or glucose-fructose, plus refined flour and fun pieces, probably isn't the best everyday choice. Again, having any of these once in a while is not the end of the world. The key is they don't deserve to be your daily breakfast default. So what does a safer default actually look like? Let's make this super practical. Next time you're in the cereal aisle, or you're staring at a box in your pantry, here's a quick checklist you can run through in under 10 seconds. First, check the sugar. Flip straight to Added Sugars on the nutrition panel. For an everyday cereal, aim for single digits in grams per serving. Under 5 grams is great. Once you're in 10 grams and above per serving, you're getting into treat territory, especially if that serving size is tiny. Remember, most people pour way more than the label serving. If a serving is 3/4 of a cup and your bowl is closer to 2 cups, you're roughly tripling everything. Second, look at the first ingredient. You want to see whole grains up front, like whole oats, whole wheat, whole corn, or brown rice. If the first ingredient is sugar, corn syrup, or a refined flour, that's a red flag. Third, check the fiber. For a cereal you eat regularly, aim for at least 3 grams of fiber per serving, ideally 4 to 7 grams. Fiber helps keep you full, slows down how fast sugar hits your bloodstream, and supports digestion over the long run. Fourth, scan the ingredient list. Shorter and simpler is usually better. You don't have to panic over every long word, but if the list is packed with multiple sweeteners, artificial colors, and a bunch of additives you don't recognize, it's probably not the most everyday option. Fifth, think about what you're adding. Cereal alone is mostly carbs. Try to add some protein and healthy fats. Greek yogurt or milk with decent protein, a handful of nuts or seeds, and some fruit for natural sweetness and extra fiber. And finally, decide: daily driver or dessert. Once you've glanced at sugar, fiber, and ingredients, ask yourself, is this a daily driver cereal or a dessert cereal? Both can exist in your pantry. The trick is knowing which one you're pouring at 7 a.m. on a school or work day. So what does a better everyday cereal actually look like? Here are some categories to look for. Not specific brands, just types. Plain shredded wheat or bran cereals. These usually have lots of fiber, no added sugar, and a short ingredient list. They're not flashy, but they keep you full. Simple oat-based cereals. Think original, unsweetened oat rings. Low sugar, whole grain, easy to customize. Muesli, or plain oats. These are great foundations. You can add your own fruit, nuts, or a drizzle of honey, and still end up with less sugar than a lot of pre-sweetened cereals. Are these as instantly exciting as neon-colored marshmallows? No. But after a couple of weeks, your taste buds start to reset. Suddenly, actual fruit tastes sweet again. And you're not riding the sugar roller coaster every morning. You don't need perfection. You just want a cereal that isn't secretly a candy bowl. All right, let's wrap this up. We just went from Nesquik and Frosted Flakes all the way up to Honey Smacks, calling out 15 cereals that make way more sense as occasional treats than as everyday breakfasts. Then we broke down how to spot safer cereals in seconds by checking sugar, fiber, and ingredients. Remember, you don't have to eat a perfect breakfast. You just deserve one that isn't secretly a sugar bomb in a box.